Hey, this is the Synergy Doc. This tip could go on for a complete lecture, uh, and we do use this in several of our training sessions, which are longer than what you're going to get today. But we've got to watch what's coming out of our mouths. I mean, unlike ever before, we could say something that will totally wreck our plans, our reputation, or alienate people, or a host of other things we don't know about. You know, there's the party line at work, and that's one aspect. And you've always got to be aware of the party line to some degree. And I get that if you really want the best outcome out of your teams, you need to allow a lot more freedom of speech, because without that, you probably aren't going to get the best idea, because everybody's going to be very guarded, and they're going to be keeping their mouth shut as much as possible so they don't step in it. So there's a lot of different issues besides just saying something that the boss doesn't want to hear, or others. I mean, if anybody's lived any length of time, we've all put our foot in our mouth. Really. If you're honest with yourself, and sometimes we don't even know it. That's worse. Because if you realize it, well, then maybe you could take and apologize quickly and take ownership of it. I am a guy who loves humor. I think humor puts people at ease, but sometimes it's a bad joke. It's just not received well. And there's bad examples that we sometimes use, and they're not the best example for the people or the situation. And, you know, we've all said something that we didn't intend to be bad that just came out. And then, of course, there's not being politically correct, comrade. That drives me nuts, too, because that just shuts down so much creativity. And not being sensitive. Because if we're not sensitive, that there are people who are overly sensitive, and people who may be troubled with things that came out of their past or their current situations, then, you know, you're probably not going to come through that very, very well. And what else? I mean, we could go on and on, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a lot more time on it. But when you do put your foot in the mouth, acknowledge it. Make fun of yourself a little if you want. And just say, hey, I blew it. And Andy Griffith, I don't know, it's an older movie for some of you younger folks, but Andy said something to his girlfriend that was wrong about women. And then he reached his finger over, like he's reaching into her ear and pulling it out, putting it in his mouth and zipping his mouth shut. I wish it was that easy. But sometimes you need to do that. Just tell them, I blew it. That was not the best example, or that was a bad joke. It went off wrong. And it's also how it's said that's equally important as what is said. My dad, old-time preacher, would just deliver harsh things to people. And his comment was, I'm not the messenger, I'm just the errand boy bringing, I'm the Western Union kid bringing it to you. And I said, well, I'd get you fired anyways just because the way you delivered it. See, sometimes we say things too loud or not loud enough. I get that. We overemphasize in the spots, or we feel this is our time to be vindicated, maybe, and that's often the wrong volume or the wrong tone, or a disinterested, insincere statement. There's a lot of things that people they're watching, but they're hearing is often different than what you might want. And what you say might mean something else to others. Let me take a classic example of somebody that's been hired to clean up a mess in an organization. I've had to deal with these people before. I'm not here to be anybody's friends. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to get this company back on track. Well, that's good. That's fair. But you know what everybody heard? I don't care about you, and I'm not friendly. And the only thing that matters to me is getting this done. Well, that's true, but that just closed you off. And then they say, nobody here likes me. Nobody here respects me. It seems like they're dragging the process out. You know, I made the mistake of saying I had an open door policy, and they took that to mean that any hour, at any time, they could just come in without any kind of schedule. And I guess that is what some places mean by that. But I soon found that I had to say, you have to set appointments in order to see me, because I had to come in an extra 2 hours early, and people realized I was coming in early, so they came in early, and that was cutting in. And so I'm taking more work home to work on it. So sometimes we mean well. Sometimes, though, what we say, it's really dangerous. Sometimes we don't mean to be mean, but we still end up being mean. And we have to take it and think about that. And we're going to have to deal with it. And it's pretty tough. I get it. It seems like nowadays you hardly can say anything. But again, if we're going to build teams and if we're going to build synergy, we have to have a little bit more freedom. But we also need some responsible output and attitude. Because the attitude in which we say things, far more important often than what you're actually saying. Hey, this is Synergy Doc. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but try it. Try to find a better way of talking about it. Write it down. Think about what it could be interpreted. And then ask for clarification and say, so what did you hear me just say? Write that down. And then have open discussion. That might be very revealing.